Well, I'll go ahead and call us to order then, and welcome everybody to the Board of Directors of Vallecitos Water District regular board meeting on Wednesday, December 16th, 2020 at 5 p.m. I'm going to start off as we have been during the COVID pandemic with a quick little statement to the public. Due to the evolving situation with COVID-19, novel coronavirus and Executive Order N3520, so long as state or local public health officials have imposed or recommended social distancing measures, Vallecitos Water District will hold future meetings via teleconferencing and allow members of the public to observe and address the meeting telephonically or otherwise electronically. During this period of time, Vallecitos Water District will not be making any physical location available for members of the public to observe the meeting and offer public comment. The public is encouraged to watch and participate in the meeting from the safety of their homes. The meeting can be viewed on the agenda page located on the main page of the district's website. Public comments or questions can be submitted to the following email address: publiccomment@vwd.org. All written comments that are received at least 90 minutes before the meeting will be provided to the board, and a record of the receipt of the comment will be noted during the meeting. Members of the public viewing the meeting via the Zoom video conferencing platform can express their desire to provide input at the appropriate time by utilizing the raised hand function. Additional instructions for online participation will be posted on the district's website at www.vwd.org/meetings. Okay. Now we'll move on to our roll call and we'll take attendance. Director Hernandez.
Present.
Okay. Director Boyd Hodgson.
Present.
Director Pennick.
Here.
Director Elithart.
Present.
And Director Sinella is present as well. So we have a full house with the board, Glenn. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adopt the agenda for tonight.
Move to approve. Hernandez.
Second, Boyd Hodgson.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the agenda by Hernandez and a second by Director Boyd Hodgson. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Pennick.
Yes.
Director Elithart.
Yes.
Director Boyd Hodgson.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so the motion passes unanimously. Going down the agenda. Glenn, are you aware of any members of the public that want to speak at this time?
It doesn't look like any of the members who have joined us virtually are expressing an interest. And I'll ask Diane if she received any emails as of 3:30 this afternoon. Diane, are you aware of any emails that we got with public comment?
Sorry, it won't unmute.
I got you unmuted. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, it won't unmute.
I unmuted you. Go ahead. I unmuted you. Go ahead. You're unmuted. So Diane, did we receive any emails?
There were no requests, no emails.
All right, thank you.
Okay, as usual, it's a pretty casual environment. We want to hear from the public. So as we go through the meeting, if anybody who is viewing us online, please feel free to use the raised hand function at any time, and we'll try to get to your question or your comment as quick as we can. So thank you for joining. With that, we'll start off tonight with a special presentation as we do our board reorganization, and I'll turn it over to you, General Manager Pruitt, to kick us off.
All right, thank you, Vice President Sinella. So we have an exciting meeting tonight. We get to welcome our two newest board members and one returning board member. Director Sinella ran unopposed and is returning to his Division 4 seat. Division 1 will now be represented by James Pennick. Mr. Pennick was born and raised in San Diego. He's been a resident of San Marcos for the last 25 years. He's an insurance agent for the last 30 years, and he's been involved in youth sports, church activities, and volunteerism in the lovely community of San Marcos that he said he just loves. He's been married for 32 years. He has 5 kids and 2 grandkids, and I understand there's a third coming in just a couple of weeks. So congratulations. That's pretty exciting and a lot of longevity in a lot of areas. That's great. Division 5 will now be represented by Tiffany Boyd Hodgson. Dr. Boyd Hodgson lives with her husband and 4 children in San Alejo Hills. She is a scientist by training and works as a consultant who helps educate physicians about disease states and the mechanisms of action behind medicines. She became interested in water safety issues when the groundwater in her former Pennsylvania community became contaminated with PFAS. She also serves on the board of San Marcos Youth Baseball. So welcome aboard. All 3 of you need to be sworn in as you start your term of office. So as secretary of the board, I will be administering the oath of office tonight. So I'll swear you all in together en masse. So all 3 of you need to state your name. But so can I have all 3 of you please raise your right hands and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Sanella,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear
and I will
true
bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and I will
And
well
that I will
and I will well
well
and faithfully discharge the duties
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
enter.
All right, well, congratulations and welcome to the board of Vallecitos Water District, and I'll turn it back over to you, Vice President Sanella.
Thank you. And welcome to our new colleagues. And I'm going to just go ahead and real quickly say that I've been serving on the board now since 2014. It's been a real pleasure and honor to represent San Marcos and our surrounding cities that we provide services to for the last 6 years. And it's also just as much of an honor to be able to continue to do that for 4 years. I'm excited to have some new people on the board with us, some new ideas, some new voices, and everybody's kind of heard from me over the last 6 years. So I really want this to be about our 2 new colleagues that are joining us, and I would like to give them an opportunity to say anything that they would like to say at this time. And certainly, if you have any friends or family in the audience, they're more than welcome to either comment or say congratulations as well if they would like to. So I'll start with you, Director Boyd Hodgson.
Thank you, Vice President Sanella. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to not only representing Division 5, but also hearing from folks all across the district. We ran a campaign and it was a very difficult one. And I'm grateful that you elected me, and I'm honored. I think we have a lot of exciting work that we can do together. And I'm looking forward for you to give me your feedback. I'm also looking forward to you holding me accountable. I ran on a platform of accountability and transparency, among other things. So my door is always open. There will be multiple ways that you can contact me that will be made public. And I hope to hear from you. I truly do. Thank you. I look forward to working with all of my colleagues on the board and all of the staff at Vallecitos. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Boyd Hodgson, and welcome again. Director Pinnock.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Director Boyd Hodgins had a tougher battle. She had to run a tough campaign, and she did it with class and dignity, and I appreciate her and what she's done. And then Director Sanella and myself, we went unopposed. So we had an easier way to be sworn in tonight. Appreciate that. I've been in San Marcos for 25 years. Love the city, love the people of the city. It's got amazing potential. Love the direction that the city officials are leading the city right now. So I'm just happy to be a part of it. I have served on state student and neighborhood relations commissions, budget review committees, planning commissions, been involved in youth sports in San Marcos for a long time. So I do have a lot of friends and family and associates that I work with and enjoy all the things that San Marcos has to offer. I'm just happy to be able to serve on a position like this, humbled, and hope I can be of assistance. For this first while, I'm going to do a lot of listening, and hopefully for the rest, I'll continue to listen, especially those in Division I and all over. So I will just be a really good listener for a while and learn, and then hopefully represent well. And again, want to be accessible and available at any time. Thank you so much.
Well, great. Thank you, Director Pinnock, and welcome to the board. I'll open it up to anybody else. If either of the other directors would like to say anything, or if there's anybody in the audience from the public that would like to say anything, it's wide open. Director Elthart?
Yeah, I'd just like to welcome our two new board members and welcome back our returning board member, you, Director Sinella. And I look forward to working with everybody, getting to know our two new directors and working with everybody. So welcome aboard.
Super. Thank you.
Mike,
Yes, Director
I
Hernandez.
too would like to welcome the new board members. I think in the beginning, you'll feel like it's drinking water out of a fire hose, but I've been on the board now here for 10 years, and it was quite a revelation what I didn't know about water. And so I know you're going to enjoy the time, and we'll all work together to help benefit all of our ratepayers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hernandez. General Manager Prum, do we have any members of the public who've raised their hand?
Yeah, we do have one. Name is Alan, I want to say Gerazzi. If you're okay, I'll allow him to speak.
Yeah, for sure. Welcome, Alan.
Alan, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm on my phone. I usually am on my laptop, but I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity to welcome Dr. Boyd Hodgson to this board of directors. She's going to be a wonderful addition to your board, and the accessibility and transparency element, along with her ability to educate the public, is welcomed by all of us. Good luck to all of you, and do a good job for us.
Great. Thank you, Alan.
And I apologize if I butchered your last name.
Any other members of the public raising their hand, Glenn?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay. Well, it's a really special evening. I wish we could be all in person doing this and having a little bit more festivities around it. Unfortunately, as we know, we're going through some tough times, and again, just congratulations to the new board members. And I think we're going to have a very productive next few years, and it's going to be hopefully sooner than later that we can get together in person and be able to conduct the business of the board in the same room. So welcome, and we'll go ahead and move along with our agenda. We're coming to the consent calendar portion of the agenda, so I'll entertain a motion. But before I do, I just want to go ahead and remind everybody that all matters listed under the consent calendar will be voted upon one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or a member of the public requests that a particular item or items be removed from the consent calendar, in which case it'll be considered separately. Any motion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Move to approve, Hernandez.
Second, Pinnock.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve by Director Hernandez and a second by Director Pinnock. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Hernandez.
Yes.
Director Elthart.
Yes.
Director Boyd Hodgson.
So point of order, is there a room for discussion? Typically, when you move in second, there's a discussion following that.
Yes, there is room for discussion. Sorry.
So
Is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Yep.
If I vote yes, I'm voting that the consent calendar should stay as is, or am I voting for all of the recommendations listed in the consent calendar?
You're voting for all the recommendations that are listed in the consent calendar. You're approving all the items with the recommendations included.
Okay, I do have some questions. So is now the appropriate time to ask those? Are
It is.
Are we discussing? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to ask a couple of questions, and on pages 22 and 23 of the board packet, I noticed that it seems like we have a lot of excess, not really excess, but we're $2+ million actual over budget, and we're $1 million, I'm sorry, net operating income over budget with water and sewer. And I was just wondering, that seems like a lot. It seems like it's great news, but I was just wondering if I could get some clarification as to what might account for that.
So I could get, I don't know exactly which number you're referring to, but in general, when we put a budget together, we try to get it so that there's a little overage, but as the year unfolds, depending on the amount of water we buy and sell and how well we're controlling our internal operating costs, will reflect on what the net operating income is at the end. So this is only, this is a December, so this is only through 5 months of the fiscal year. So we track this as the fiscal year unfolds, and then we use the information here as we prepare the next year's budget. Joining us tonight, we do have our finance manager, Wes Owen. So I'm going to ask Wes if he wants to add anything to what I did. So Wes, go ahead.
Yeah, so those, good evening, directors, and welcome new directors. The monthly financial reports, we sort of allocate it. A lot of the expenses are water sales based on the usage, time of year, stuff like that. But you'll notice in those reports, we compare the current year to prior year and then also to budget. And any significant variances from budget are explained at the bottom in notes. So you'll see a lot of what we have, excuse me, for water, for example, we are over budget for that. We budgeted to have $2.3 million in net operating income year to date, and we have 4.9. The majority of that is due to the water sales variance. So we're $3.2 million over on water sales. We've had a lot more demand due to increased residential usage. People are staying home with COVID, using a lot more water. We anticipated an increase in usage. We also anticipated a decrease in commercial usage, but that increase has just been a lot more than we thought. And with the hot summer and everything, that's the majority of the difference between the budget. Other areas you can see though for water are late and lock charges. That's mostly late charges. We had higher delinquency charges. We'll be talking about that in the COVID plan too, looking at the delinquency charges, where they're at year to date. Other revenue is higher. Pumping costs are higher, but that's mostly due to, actually those are lower expenses. So all those explanations talk about why we're not in line with budget. It's not an exact science, but anything that's over 20% or $41,000 less or greater than what we anticipated, we explain in those explanations. Same thing with sewer.
Okay, thank you.
And if I can add real briefly to that, when the board adopted the current year's budget back in June of last year, we adopted a COVID-specific budget. We made estimates of how we thought COVID would impact district operations, mostly because of changes in water sales. We used a national study that was out at the time as the basis for that, and we found that we're far exceeding the water sales that we thought. As Wes mentioned, we thought home residential use would go up, but we thought commercial would go way down, and we thought agricultural and irrigation would go down as well for a net decrease in water sales. We've seen the residential consumptions far exceed what we anticipated, and it actually overcame the decreases that we did see on the commercial side. So it's a good problem to have, right? So I'd rather see a positive variance than a negative variance, but as Wes mentioned, the last item on the action calendar today, item 2.4, will give a presentation on how those numbers are trending. We've been tracking it monthly throughout the fiscal year.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go back to the original motion, and we had a motion made to approve the consent calendar by Hernandez and a second by Pinnick, and I'll restart the roll call vote. Hernandez.
Yes.
Director Elthar.
Yes.
Director Boyd Hodgson.
Yes.
Director Pinnick.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so the motion passes unanimously. So we'll move out of the consent calendar and into the regular action items. Item 2.1 for the annual board transition.
Yeah, so one of the actions that the board takes every December is to appoint the new incoming president and vice president. And can you all see the screen that I shared?
Yes.
Okay. So this was included in the board packet, and this just simply, at least the first 8 or 9 lines show historically from 2013 to 2020 who the president and vice president were. We've historically gone through a rotation. There is one error. If you can see in this bottom right corner, it says December 3rd of 2020. That should actually say December 3rd, 2019. This is what happened last year. So the year just ending, Director Evans was the president and Director Sinella was the vice president. And based on our historical rotation, the new president would be Director Sinella and Director Elitharp would be our new vice president, but it's the board's decision as to what we do. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Vice President Sinella.
All right. Thank you, Glenn, for the historical background. And if there's, I guess I'll open it up for any questions or discussion, or if there's not any of that, then I'll open it up for a motion for some appointments to be considered.
Quick question.
I would
Yep.
move the appointment of Mike Sinella as president and Greg Elitharp as vice president.
Okay, before we take a vote, I saw at least one hand, and I think I heard somebody chime in. So Director Boyd Hodgson, I saw your hand.
Sure. I think for the benefit of the public and the benefit of the directors, I would like to hear the folks that are presumed president and vice president articulate their vision for the board.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and start off if Director Elitharp doesn't mind. And really, what my vision for this board, and so over the last 6 years that I've been on it, I think we've accomplished a lot. We've definitely passed a lot of fiscal reforms. We've definitely made a tremendous amount of progress in public transparency. We've been honored to win a few statewide awards in that area. COVID obviously has put kind of a damper on our ability to get out there in the public and interact with folks, at least live, but we do a lot via social media and our website and the recording of meetings and stuff. So I think we've accomplished a lot already, but going forward, for me, I want to continue those things. I would like to bring the board together as soon as we can after COVID allows us to have a strategic kind of strategy meeting, and I want to get input from all the other colleagues that I serve with as to what goals we might want to have both near term and long term. And so hopefully Q2, maybe Q3 at the latest, we'll be able to do that. I also think that'll be an opportunity to do a little team building and kind of get to know each other a little bit better since we'll be working together for the water district and we're not able to get together right now. So that would be one of my first primary goals. But as far as kind of bigger vision that I have is I really want Vallecitos to be not only engaged with the community on almost a daily basis, but I want that engagement to lead to more than just providing information, which I think is important, but I want to put Vallecitos on the map, if you will. I want people to want to come to the areas that we serve, and I want them to ask that same question that most home buyers ask, right? What school district is this in, right? Everybody who's bought a house, we've always done our investigative work on the school district. I think I've owned 2 houses in San Marcos in my time here. I never once asked which water district are we in. I want people to ask that question, not because they're concerned. I already know that we have a top-notch team and staff that will provide the safe and reliable water for our customers and wastewater services. But I want us to find a way as a team to go even beyond that. And there's different opportunities that we're exploring currently with regards to some of our real estate assets within the district that I think if we can find a way to put those to better use for our customers so that we can potentially generate revenue from a different source other than water sales, then we can actually someday be that water district, be that reason a business or a family wants to move into our area because they're paying a lower water rate than anybody else in San Diego County, because we found a way to be innovative and kind of think outside the box to generate revenue from a different source than just selling water as we do today. Those are probably the two biggest highlights for me. Director Elithard?
Yeah, well, that was well said, Director Sinella. I think you pretty much covered everything, but I guess my vision, I want to continue to be, I want us as an organization to continue to be fiscally responsible and transparent to our ratepayers. I'd like us to continue to empower our employees to provide outstanding services to our constituents, our ratepayers. I think Director Snell mentioned strategic planning. I think it's long overdue. I think it would be a good way not only to do some much needed long range planning, but also to do some team building, as was mentioned. Yeah, I echo everything else Director Sinella said.
Thank you, Director Elithard. Are there any, and thank you for the question, Director Boyd Hodgson. Appreciate it. Any other questions from any other board members? Okay, and I don't think we quite made it through the motion. So if anybody would like to make a motion, we'll entertain it.
I made the motion to accept Sinella and Elithorp as president and vice president.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that. Pinnick?
Okay, so there was a motion made by Director Hernandez and a second by Director Pinnick. Is there any other discussion before we take a vote? Any other questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Director Elithard?
Yes.
Director Boyd Hodgson?
Yes.
Director Pinnick?
Yes.
Director Hernandez?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you all to my colleagues for your vote and for your trust. And I'm really looking forward to great things from all of us, and that will benefit our customers. I think it's going to be a wonderful next 12 months. Hopefully, again, we'll be able to do it in person, but we'll ride that wave. And thank you. Okay, we'll move on to action items 2.2, committee appointments and representatives. And I'll go ahead and kick us off. And Glenn, if you have anything that you want to add, please feel free to chime in. But I did have an opportunity to talk to everybody or correspond through email with everybody about the interested positions that we have within the water district that the board members have the opportunity to serve on and contribute in different ways. And while I wasn't able to give everybody everything that they asked for, I really did try to make an effort to give everybody at least something that they asked for. And I did ask that our general manager Pruitt send out the listing before the meeting, which I believe he did. I did see the email, and it's up before us now, although the print's very small and I can't read it. I'm not going to read it, but I'm certainly open for any questions. And Glenn, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this at this point?
No, just to generally say, if I haven't told the two new directors, we have 4 standing committees. We have Engineering and Equipment Committee, Legal and Legislative Affairs, Finance and Investment, and Public Awareness, Personnel and Policy. We also assign representatives to several outside agencies, Encina, County Water Authority, CASA, and there's a few other things we do. So we just want to make sure that we have a good representation on all those committees and outside agencies. And we're just looking for direction from the board. And I did coordinate with incoming President Sinella, and these are what he asked me to put up for to share with all of you.
Thank you, Glenn. Director Boyd Hodgson.
I'd like to request to be an alternate on a couple of committees. Can I move to amend and put myself as alternate before the vote?
Yes, as long as Glenn and maybe Glenn, our legal counsel, Gilpin, as long as it's allowed to be an alternate, I'm good with that. I know that I think we've had alternates before for like EWA and some other positions, but I'm not sure about the other committees because of once you cross over into 3, does it create any Brown Act issues?
Yeah, so I'll admit I don't know the full answer, and I'll let Mr. Gilpin pipe in a second. But we do have a formal alternate for Encina. Historically, we have, and currently it's myself. And the Water Authority does not allow an alternate, but the Water Authority does allow you to give your proxy vote to another agency. And the board has chosen the Livenhain Municipal Water District to carry our proxy in the event that we want to give the proxy. I don't know the rules for agencies like CASA and Aqua. And I think President Sinella has a point with the internal committees. If we had alternates, I think we run into issues with Brown Act violations. So with that, maybe I'll ask Mr. Gilpin to lend us his wisdom.
Well, you can have alternates if your structure allows for it, but the caveat is the alternate cannot attend the board meeting. So you could only attend in the stead if one of the other 2 members can't attend the committee meeting, because only 2 of you can gather on a committee because that's less than a quorum. So it creates some logistical issues, but the Brown Act does not preclude having alternates on committees, provided you don't show up at the same meetings.
Okay. Well, thank you both. And Director Boyd Hodgins, great question. That's something we hadn't really thought about before, and now we learned something. What would you like to be an alternate for?
I would like to be an alternate for EWA, please.
Okay. I don't have any concerns, so I'm going to accept the amendment to the list that I had provided. And Glenn, you're going to make the note of that?
I did. I wrote it down, and I'll miss serving my time I've had with EWA, but I'll gladly step aside.
Okay.
And just so Director Boyd Hodgson knows, in my capacity as general manager, I always attend the board meetings of EWA. So I'll just be there in a slightly different capacity as I would if I was the alternate. So that's fine.
Okay. Any other questions or amendments or any comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the committee appointments and representatives as I presented, with the one addition or the one amendment made by Director Boyd Hodgson, that she would be appointed as the alternate member for EWA.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Hernandez.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Director Boyd Hodgson and a second by Hernandez. We'll go ahead and conduct a roll call vote. Director Pennick,
Yes.
Director Boyd Hodgson,
Yes.
Director Elithart,
Yes.
and Director Hernandez,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, everybody, and enjoy your committee work. Okay, moving on down to 2.3 on my agenda here. The proposed 2021 investment policy resolution. You can find it on pages 61 and 62. I'll go ahead and turn it over to staff to present.
Yeah, so every year we take the investment policy in front of the board to get direction, and we make recommendations for changes and look for board approval. And I'm going to let our finance manager, Wes Owen, handle this item. And I believe we have one of our consultants here to make the presentation as well. So Wes, I'm going to turn it over to you for now.
Thank you. Good evening, President Sinella, members of the board. This is the proposed 2021 investment policy presentation. It'll be a short presentation. I'm just going to go over some background, and we'll talk about our advisor's review. We'll go over Chandler's policy recommendations, and then finally the staff recommendation. Oh, I got to share my screen first. I bet that would help. Let's see. Okay, can you see that? Sorry about that. So background, it's district policy to submit the investment policy for board approval on an annual basis. And it is our policy because it is recommended by government code. It's GFOA and the Treasurer Association's best practices as well. The investment policy was last approved on May 15, 2019. So we're doing this one for that was 2020, this is 2021. And let's see. In 2018, we contracted with an investment advisor, and that advisor was Chandler Asset Management. And one of the services they provide is they review our investment policy on an annual basis and compare it to government code and make sure that it complies. So all the information being presented tonight, all the recommended changes, including the investment policy, were presented to the Finance Committee on November 16, 2020. And the next slide is just a quote from the investment advisor. We submitted to them, they reviewed it, and they came back and said that they had provided a summary of the material recommendations, which incorporate recent changes to California government code along with their best practices. And with that, I'll let Jenny Linkwich from Chandler Asset Management present their recommended changes.
Okay, thank you, Wes. Welcome, everyone. Good evening, honorable directors and staff. Thanks for having me. I'm Jenny Linkwitz. I'm a senior portfolio manager with Chandler, and I'd like to thank you for having us here this evening. So as Wes mentioned, as part of our services, we review the district's policy on an annual basis to make sure that it's incorporating recent changes to California law and also to any changes in best practices that we're seeing in the industry. And we also have some changes this year that have the purpose of trying to align the policy a little bit more closely with California government code. So I'll go over all of those things. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to stop me. I'd be happy to explain. So one of the first changes that we would like to recommend is really just a housekeeping item. We have a list of institutions that the district is authorized to do business with. And so we added broker dealers basically to that list. And so this is to align the policy more closely with what's in California Government Code section 53601.5. So that's the purpose of that. It's really, it doesn't change the way we're managing the portfolio at all. It just is an item that I think will be helpful to make the policy more in line with government code. And then moving on to the authorized investments section, the other, there's 3 items in that section that we would like to recommend as well. One of the items is recommending increasing the maximum issuer percentage for each government agency from 25 to 30% of the portfolio. So examples of government agencies are things like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Federal Home Loan Bank. And so these are very conservative institutions. They're affiliated with the US government. And we do think it's important to have, this is not something that's in code, but we think it's important to have some sort of diversifier, some sort of limit for each agency so that you're not invested all in one. But we think at certain times it can make sense to have maybe more than 25% if there's opportunities with one particular issuer at a given time. So that's one recommendation that we're making based on a change to our best practices. And then another change that we'd like to recommend is adding some language to the commercial paper section to align that section a little bit more closely with California code. So this would enable the district to purchase commercial paper that's issued by limited liability corporations or trusts, provided that it has program-wide credit enhancement. And so this is something, as I mentioned, was already permitted in code. And I think it could potentially become important because it was a recent change that the SEC made to the law regarding qualified institutional buyers or QIBs. It used to be that public agencies like the district were not permitted to purchase private placements like 144A securities. And a lot of this kind of commercial paper falls under that category. And so with the change the SEC just made this year that became effective on December 8th, that permits any public agency that is a QIB, a qualified institutional buyer, meaning that they have assets of at least $100 million, that they could purchase 144A securities. So the district doesn't currently have $100 million, but we think it would be good to have this included in the policy just for the future and just to make sure that the policy is in line with code. So that's something that we strive for as well. And then the next change that we're recommending is also in line with a change to government code that happened this year. We had Senate Bill 998 was passed, which becomes effective on the first of the year. And this will allow local agencies that have assets of more than 100 million to purchase up to 40% of the portfolio in eligible commercial paper. So that would be effective until January 1st of 2026. And here again, we would put the caveat in the policy. Currently, the limit is 25%, and that's the legal limit per California law, as long as assets under management are less than $100 million. And then the final recommendation that we have this evening is to make an update to the downgrade language in the policy. The way it currently reads is that in certain instances, if a security was downgraded below the ratings required for purchase in the policy, that we would need to talk to the treasurer and get approval before selling it. And we'd like to update that language to allow us in an emergency to be able to sell a security if it was in distress, for example, without having to get approval first. We pride ourselves in always being open and communicating with our clients, and we always want to make sure we're doing that. And we of course hope to never need to use a provision like this. This is just more of a safety measure in case things, like we saw in March, we saw certain things moving pretty quickly, with ratings downgrades and things like that. And so we would just like to incorporate that change to make things a little more seamless if there was that type of a situation. So those are the 5 major changes. There are a couple of other minor grammatical updates and things like that that were made to the policy, but I'd be happy to take any questions you might have about the policy in general, or about Chandler, about any of these recommended changes.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Do any of my colleagues have any questions? I see Director Boyd Hodgson with their hand up.
Hi, thank you, Jenny. That was a great presentation. I have a question about section 6.3, the move from 25% to 30%. It sounds to me, as a complete layperson, that you're trying to move to more conservative investments. That's a fair statement?
It would allow us to purchase more of a single issuer like Fannie Mae, for example. If the portfolio is very conservative per state law in general. The California came after the financial crisis. California passed some pretty stringent requirements limiting the amounts of investments, the types of investments that public agencies can buy. And this policy has that even more strict. So I think that what you're asking, I think at the end of the day, it could result in a more conservative portfolio, yes.
Okay, and are you making these types of suggestions to other water utilities that you work with?
Yes, these are recommendations that we're making to all of our clients.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, Director Stanella.
Yes, Director Hernandez, go ahead.
Do we have a procedure or a vehicle that if the stocks that we have ownership in go down a percentage of some type or another, that we, a stop notice, I guess they call it in the brokerage world, on our investments?
So the district per California code 53601 is permitted to purchase fixed income securities. So we're purchasing bonds and CDs and things like that for the district. We're not purchasing any stocks for operating funds. So stocks and things are permitted maybe for pension funds and things like that. But for the operating funds, it's a very conservative mandate. So I'm not sure if I know what you mean.
Well, if they purchase bonds, then it's a set rate that stays that rate until the bond matures. So it does not have the ability to fluctuate. Is that right?
So actually, there is a market. These are all liquid securities. So when we're purchasing bonds for the portfolio, we're required to prioritize safety first, liquidity second, and yield is third. And so one of the things that we try to do is to structure a portfolio that in a time of distress, like we just saw in March when the coronavirus pandemic set in, the district's portfolio actually gained value because it has so many government securities in the portfolio. There was a big flight to quality that happened. So the idea is that if there was a big cash need, for example, by the district, that the securities would be able to be sold to raise funds. So that's one of the goals. So we mark to market all the securities on a regular basis. So there is a market for all the securities in the portfolio, and that's something that is reported in the holdings.
Thank you.
Okay,
Quick question.
Yes, Director Pinnock.
All right, Jenny, thank you so much for taking your time. Two quick questions. One, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to ask this, but as it relates to the SB 998, how many assets under management do we have? Are we close to that 100 million?
So the consolidated portfolio, Chandler's portfolio that we manage is about 53 million. Let me check and see what you have. I think it's over 70 million, right, Wes?
Yeah, it's 76 million.
Okay.
Okay.
But
All your assets.
yeah, that includes LAIF and the county pool. The county pool is about 5.3 million and LAIF is the remainder of that, which is like 17 million.
Okay. So that 998 would not apply to us at this point.
Yeah. So that section of 998 does not. And
Okay.
you know, it's something that you could opt to include or not, depending on, you know, what you'd like to do.
Okay. And then the second question, just on that sell securities without waiting for prior approval. Is there a limit on that, or is it just a green light if we feel it's, you know, and I know you said it would probably not be likely, but is there a limit on that? We can sell up to a certain amount without prior approval? Is there, or do we just give you the green light to say sell away if you need to?
So this would be a green light to sell whatever we needed to sell. But in general, I just want to stress that we have a credit process, and the vast majority of the portfolio is invested in in government securities, and all the securities in the portfolio are required to be very highly rated and very conservative. So even of the universe of securities that could be purchased, we're just purchasing a very small amount. We want to make sure it's very well diversified and not concentrated too heavily in any one industry or in any one issuer. So actually SB 998, one of the things that they actually incorporated is a limit on the amount per issuer that you can even purchase. So it didn't used to have a limit. You could buy as much as you wanted of certain assets. So they've imposed a 10% limit for CP, commercial paper, and corporate bond purchases. But Chandler has already, as our best practices, had a limit per issuer of 5%. So that's something we've already have a more conservative thing. And we work well within that. We don't get close to the 5%. We don't want to be taking too much risk with these types of funds, because we take, we want it to be very conservative, and we want the funds to be available if they're needed.
Gotcha. No, thank you. Thank you for the explanation. Understood.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you again, Jenny. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve and adopt the annual investment policy resolution for calendar year 2021.
So moved. Boyd Hodgson.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion.
Second, Panic.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Director Boyd Hodgson and a second by Director Pinnock. We'll go ahead and do a roll call. Hernandez.
Yes.
Director Pinnock.
Yes.
Director Elithart.
Yes.
Director Boyd Hodgson.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you again, everybody. We'll move on to item 2.4. It's the COVID financial reporting presentation, page 63 on your packet. And I'll turn this, are you going to give this to Wes, Glenn, or do you want to kick us off?
I'll kick it off, but just for the record, for the previous three items of the action items, we did not have any public speakers wanting to make comments. So I just want to make sure the record reflects that.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 2.4, as we talked about during the consent calendar, staff has been, when we recommended the budget approval back in June of last year, we committed to providing regular updates to the board to see how our estimates for budget impacts related to the reality of going forward. So this is another installment of that. So this is the December report. So it'll give you 5 months of data. And then if the board wants us to change the frequency or anything, we can certainly entertain those discussions. That'd be great. I'm not sure if Wes is going to cover it, but keep in mind that whenever we report on this data, a lot of it's tied to water sales, and there's always a lag. So when we're talking about, when you get a December report, it's talking about usage that occurred in previous months. So a lot of this stuff is what we call a lagging indicator. It's already happened by the time we're able to tell you about it. So even when we're halfway through the year, we're not really halfway through the year in terms of the data we've analyzed. So I hope that makes sense. But I'm going to turn it over to Wes and his team. They're going to provide the presentation, an update of where we're at and where we see the trends going. And at the end, I'll try to tie everything in, or tie it all up. So Wes, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening again, President Snell, members of the board. Figured I'd try something different this time and open my presentation and share it first before I started talking. Hopefully that works better. This is the COVID-19 financial plan update. It's a monthly update. And well, it didn't work better this time, apparently. It says it stopped sharing. Let me see if I can get it back up.
Doesn't play nice.
Okay, hopefully that's back up. See if I can flip through it this time. Nope.
Yeah, it's up.
Oh,
Yep, it's
I
gone.
had it.
It's just crashing.
That's kind of weird.
Hold on, let me close other stuff, see if that helps.
Those $53 million in investments are weighing your machine down, I think.
Yeah.
Apparently, let's see. Okay, try again. Strike three. If I can go like this. Yeah, the slides aren't coming up at all. Can you see that?
It
No.
was up for a second.
On the front page.
It's just disappearing, and then if I go again, it crashes. So that is not good. Let me close it and reopen it. I apologize. I don't know why it's crashing.
Wes, if you want to try to send it to me, I can share my screen.
Yeah, I'll email it to you right now.
Let me know when you sent it. I don't see it yet.
Yeah, I just sent it.
Okay.
And I reopened it, so now I'll try to share it again.
It hasn't come through in the email yet either.
Would it be helpful if Mr. Drummond made Mr. Owens a co-host and that way he could share and walk through?
Yeah, I think it's working now.
There it goes, Wes.
I just had to close it and reopen it. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is the COVID-19 financial plan update for as of November 30th, 2020. This is a monthly update, and the agenda for tonight will be to give the actual financial results versus the budgeted COVID-19 financial plan for water sales, water purchases, delinquency charges, lock charges, and bad debt expense. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike Arthur, who will talk about water sales and water purchases.
Great. Thank you, Wes. President Sinella, members of the board. Welcome, Directors Boyd Hodgson and Directors Pennock. Wish I could be there in person with you guys, but we have to make do. So real quick, I just want to do a brief background on our water meters and how many customers we have, just to give you a little bit of perspective. So in the district currently, we have about 22,000 active meters, and approximately 19,500 of them are the 5/8 and 3/4 inch meters. So so the majority of our meters are the smaller 5/8 3/4. So if Wes, you go to the next slide. So this is that same pie, but the 22,000 meters, but sliced by our customer type. So we have about 19,312 single-family residence customers. So if you add that with the multifamily, which is 3%, about 90% of our customers are residential customers. So that just kind of gives you a picture of the district and who our major customers are and what our major customer meter sizes are. So if we go to the next one. So Wes and General Manager Perome discussed about the COVID updates and how, and Director Boyd Hodgson, you asked a good question about the budget. And real quick, if we were to go back to when we provided the budget and we knew that COVID wouldn't have as big of an effect as it did, then probably our budget numbers would be a lot different. They would be more in line with last year. So quickly, we do check our customers by customer type, sorry. We have 4 customer types that we group them into: the commercial, industrial, other, the residential, irrigation, and agricultural. And we'll also discuss production a little bit. And production is our purchases. Production, it makes it sound like we produce the water, but we actually purchase our water from the Water Authority. And we do have 3 supplies of water: Water Authority's water, the desal water we get, and an exchange agreement that we have with Aleve and Hain. So Wes, if you click one more time. So this shows our water sales by customer type. And even though residential customers are 90% of our customer meters, we sell only 61% of our water to them. Irrigation is about 25%, our commercial, industrial, others about 10%, and agricultural takes up the remaining 5%. So Wes, if you can kind of click. Okay, so what this shows is water sales comparison for the last 3 fiscal years. This would be from July 1st through November 30th. And as General Manager Perome said, this is lagging. So even though it's July 1st through November 30th, it's actually water sales from June 1st to October 31st. So it provides a 5-month comparison for the last 3 years. And General Manager Perome mentioned that our water sales, we were budgeting to go down, but they actually are up for the year. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, we are seeing, as Wes mentioned earlier, more residential usage. And also a couple of months ago, it was really hot and there was a lot of outdoor watering irrigation. So we go one more slide. So let me break down the slide before we show the numbers in there. I have the numbers grayed out just so I can show you specifically the new board members, how we report on this. As I mentioned, we have the 4 categories: the residential, irrigation, agricultural, and commercial industrial. What this slide will do is compare the COVID period. And the COVID period is April of 2020 to November 2020 to current. And it's going to compare this time period to the same time period last year. So if we go one more slide, one more click, Wes. So I mentioned that we thought we'd be up in residential. So the right columns that you can see now are what we projected during the budget season. We projected residential would be up 5% because more people are at home, washing more, doing laundry more, home offices. The irrigation and agriculture we did expect would go down about 10%. And the commercial, industrial, other, since many businesses are closing, restaurants are closing, we did expect that they'd go down about 25%. That overall mesh of categories was expected to be down about 4%. So what have we seen during this COVID period? Well, last year to date, we sold about 9,562 acre feet of water during that time period. And we purchased about almost 10,800 acre feet. This year, rather than going down the 4%, we've actually seen an increase for total sales of 10,119 acre feet. If you click one more, Wes. So the actual sales have gone up 5.8%. Again, the majority of that is weather driven. And the other part is the residential increase of 9%. Again, more people home, washing more, washing your hands more, doing laundry more often. And one more time, I'll bring it all in, Wes, or I'll compare it. That's fine. So again, the 5.8 increase for that COVID period versus the minus 4%, which we originally budgeted for. The purchases, the water that we buy is up 3%. And again, we expected it to be down 4%. So those are part of the reasons why the budget is we're a little bit over budget in them. And again, things aren't necessarily straight line too. We receive the majority of our revenue would probably be during this time period because most of our water sales are during the summer. So the July, August, September, when it was really warm, we're collecting a lot of revenue. So we don't just straight line it. For example, in December, January, February, when it's raining, we're going to see very limited sales resulting in less revenue coming in. So that's the presentation, and I would gladly answer any questions if anyone has any.
One quick question.
Yes, Director Pennick.
Just a clarification. When you say irrigation, is that water usage by the city of San Marcos? Is that outside water usage, or what is that?
It's outside water usage. The majority of it, you could think of it as like parks, the school district, they have a separate irrigation meter. Any big type of landscaping that has a separate irrigation meter.
But that's all city usage, right?
It could be city usage. I believe that could also include like if an HOA has a separate irrigation meter, it would include that as well.
And that's probably the single biggest use. This is General Manager Pruitt. Those HOAs that have large landscaped areas drive a lot of that irrigation number.
Okay, so that's lumped into the irrigation, the HOA. So it could be private use by different entities instead of it's not just city usage.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay, that have a different meter.
Yeah, it has to have a separate irrigation meter.
Dedicated.
Gotcha.
Now,
Thank you.
clearly, there's some single family homes that have a yard that they irrigate, but all that irrigation is considered residential use because there's not a separate meter for what people use inside their house versus what they use outside their house. This
Yeah,
is
that's
just
what I was
for
getting at.
meters that are specific to irrigation.
Gotcha. And those are mostly apartment, like HOAs, multi-unit locations as well as city.
Yeah, parks, yeah, city parks, golf courses, things like that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So that's that's the water sales, water purchases portion of the presentation. From there, we'll move on to the billing section. So,
Hey, Wes, before
Yeah.
we get to the billing section, I'm more than happy to hold off the questions until the end, but if there's anything that's weighing on any of the directors as it pertains to the water sales, I want to provide an opportunity for any questions. Okay, it's all yours, Wes. Thank you.
thank you. So this next slide shows the billing timeline in days. And this is just to give us an idea of the delay between the time the water is used and when it might become late, whether it be a delinquency fee, they might be locked, or we have a bad debt expense. So if we look at it, if the water is being used like August 1st, the bill would be issued on September 2nd. It would be considered late on September 22nd. They'd have a late fee after being called and notified on September 29th. And then they would have been locked. During COVID, we're not locking. So this is just to show what normally would happen, but not during COVID. So we're not locking, but they would have been locked November 1st. And then they'd be considered bad debt expense on November 29th. So as you can see, there's like a 4-month delay between the time the water is used and when it goes through these categories that we're going to talk about coming up. So we'll talk about late fees, lock fees, and bad debt in just a minute, but this is just the timeline so you can kind of envision that. So this next slide shows the requested fee waivers since April 2020, which is about the time COVID began. And we've talked about it before, but the district has sort of an informal special care program that if somebody calls in and says that they, were affected by COVID, would like their late fees waived, and they have, they can show that they're affected by COVID, we'll put them in what we call a special care program. When they're in that program, we do not charge them late fees until they let us know that they're okay and can pay their bill. And at that time, we hope to work with them to set up a payment plan or some way that they can, work out payment of their past due account. So that's the special care portion of that. But if we look at from April to November, the requested fee waivers, in April, it was 172. The number of calls went up to 176 in May. They came down to 100 in June, and then 66 July, 62 in August, 66 in September, and now they're down to 47 and 45 in November. So as you can see, we've had a significant decrease in the number of fee requests being waived. So that's good news. Next slide shows the actual dollar amounts of those fees. So this is the amount that's been waived due to COVID. And in October, it was $190. In November, the total is $390. So as you can see, it's not a significant amount of money that we're waiving for customers. So no great impact on the district there.
And Wes, if I can jump in real quick, I just want to make sure it's clear to all the directors that we're just talking about like late fees. The actual amount of the bill is not being waived. It's just the late fees portion of the bill. So we're still tracking the overall amount of the bills and all the past due amounts. We haven't waived any of that. And Wes will probably talk about what we're going to do about those amounts as we go forward.
So the next slide shows the number of delinquent accounts as of November 30th and for the last 9 months, and comparing to those to the last 2 years. So if we look at November in particular, we can see that the number of delinquent accounts is 1,839. That is up from 1,361 last year, which is the green bar you see there. The year before it was 1,613. And then if we look back at October of last year, it was at 2,138. So the 1,839 really isn't a significant increase in the number of delinquent accounts. So again, there's no real apparent or obvious COVID impact there. And the next slide we're going to talk about are delinquency charges. So this is delinquency charges year to date as of November 30th with comparison to the prior year and the budget. So looking at November, and this is what we were talking about before in the monthly reports, the delinquency charges are up to $163,000 this month. Last year at the same time, they were $118,000. So it's really not a huge increase. And we budgeted to collect a lot less for our COVID-19 financial plan. We actually budgeted to collect about 30% of what we had in the previous year. So we only budgeted to have $35,000. So we actually have collected more revenue from delinquency charges than we anticipated, which isn't necessarily a good thing for customers having late fees, but the district has more revenue than budgeted. So that's another reason why we're sort of over budget on the net operating income. The next slide shows the accounts not locked due to COVID for the month of November. So as I mentioned before, we are not locking customers, but if we were in the month of November, we would have locked 143 accounts. And of those 143, 130 would be the single family residential. So the majority of them would be single family residential. The next slide shows the locked charges year to date as of November. And compared to prior year and budget, as in all the previous slides. And you can see in November, we budgeted to have 0 lock charges this year. We didn't plan on locking anybody all year, and we've had 0 lock charges as of November. And looking at last year at this time, we had $56,650. So really the impact on the district there is that we have $56,000 less in revenue this year than we did last year. And finally, the bad debt expense year to date. This shows it as of November with comparison to prior year and budget. And the bad debt expense is at $89,000 as of November. And last year at this time, it was at $18,000. So again, there's an increase there, but we budgeted to have 10 times the bad debt expense this year that we did last year. So we had budgeted for $187,000 as of November, and we're well below that. So our budget was very conservative, and we're coming in below it. And that's another reason why, again, we're above budget on the monthly reports. So that's the COVID-19 presentation. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
And thank you, Wes and Mike. Appreciate the information. I'll open it up to my colleagues on the board. Any questions or comments? Oh, Director Boyd Hodgson.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. That was a really informative presentation. It looks like we have more money than we anticipated during COVID time. It looks also like a lot of people are struggling. We have 1,839 delinquent accounts. We have 143 accounts that would have been locked. We have not that many people taking advantage of the special care program. So my question is, and it's going to sound radical, but what are we doing to promote the special care program to help some of these folks get some relief? And we've got the money that we can do it. It looks like from my perspective, unless I'm missing something. What are we doing to help some of these 1,839 folks get relief through the special care program? How are we reaching out to them? And is it possible to do something like a personal outreach to these 143 accounts that would have been locked to try to work with them? And I know you can't lead people down a path completely. You can't force them to do something, but I don't think this program is very well known. I know it's an informal program, but just from the numbers, a lot of people are struggling. And I feel like, yes, we have to stay in business. Yes, it is our prerogative to collect money for water used, but we're in a really hard time for a lot of folks. So I'm wondering what we can do to promote the special care, and if there can be some personal outreach to some of these accounts that would have been locked under other circumstances.
I'll jump in on that. So we don't, when people fall into hard times, if they're having trouble paying their bill, we go through a process of reaching out to them. We notify them, we send them late notices, we encourage them to contact us. And when they do contact us, we explore alternatives. And that's how these people primarily get put into the special care program and other programs that we have. So it's not like we're just sitting back waiting for them to contact us. We do outreach to them to let them know that they've fallen behind. I would caution the board that if you advertise this widely and open the doors, it could be a floodgate of people saying, oh, I don't have to pay my water bill. I can just sign up. So it's a balance. And you're absolutely right, Director Boyd Hodgson. There's a lot of people that need help. And we think those people, we're reaching out to them, we're getting in touch with them. Some take us up on the offer, not all of them do. If you look at the numbers, and Wes, you don't need to bring them back up, but COVID hasn't caused a dramatic increase in some of the delinquent accounts. We've always had delinquent accounts over the years. So we were trying to look and say, is COVID causing a particular reaction in our customer base that we didn't see before? And at least with the delinquent accounts, we're not seeing a drastic departure. So I think there's just, in any given year, COVID or non-COVID, there's a certain percentage of our customers that are delinquent. They have, their attention is elsewhere. It's other things more important than paying their water bill. We eventually communicate with them enough and they eventually pay their bill. So I think we're seeing a similar scenario with COVID, it may be slightly higher, but we have reacted in that we're much more forgiving. We're waiving late charges. We're putting together plans for people. And most of these people that with an outstanding balance, we want to put them on payment plans that will fit their income levels, and particularly in light of COVID. So we're a long way from resolving all the COVID issues. We know it's going to be probably the rest of the fiscal year and even beyond that. So we intend to keep these programs going, but I am a little concerned about, putting an ad on the front page of the newspaper saying, hey, if you can't pay your water bill, don't worry about it. We've got you. Because I don't know what the reaction would be. And to let you know, I think our actions are very similar to all the water agencies in San Diego County. They're all doing similar things in that they budgeted conservatively, they're tracking things, they've developed metrics, they've developed programs to work with their customer base that are most at risk, and they're trying to deal with them on a case-by-case basis. So that's all I wanted to share. And Wes, if you had anything else you wanted to share, feel free.
Well, yeah, I agree with everything you said. And I just want to remind or just mention that, in order to get our COVID-19 financial plan into place, we had to make some very conservative assumptions because originally we had a much higher budget. So what we'd have to do, in essence, is kind of look at what we had originally budgeted and compare how we're doing to that, because that was what our need was as a district to sort of operate, because we never operate for a profit or anything greater than what we need. But we cut back. We made lots of cuts, lots of concessions for COVID in order to, make our customers happy, to not lock customers. So it is a very conservative budget, but we almost had to sort of, I don't want to use the word suffer, but we did have to make a lot of concessions that we would need as a district. So we may look very, healthy compared to our conservative budget, but that's actually not the case because of the budgeting that we did.
Okay, thank you. And just so we're clear, I didn't say we were going to put an ad on the front page of the paper, so I don't think that that's a fair characterization.
No, those were my words. Yeah, not yours.
However, I wanted to put that out there that that folks are struggling, and I appreciate both of your points of view. Thank you.
President,
Thank you. Yes, Director Hernandez.
I went through this when we had the recession in 2009. I fell behind, and I got to tell you that our water district reaches out to everyone who is having a problem paying their bill. And they have a the best in all of the utilities, repayment program, partial payment program, without any fear of being locked out. If you can breathe and you're making a try, you're going to get your water. So I think we're doing a wonderful job. Anybody that asks about it is given, they're not dodged, they're given all the information. So I think we're doing a fine job in identifying this opportunity.
And I would say, Director Boyd Hodgson, Hodgson, sorry, I mispronounced your name. Alicia Saavedra from Customer Service is actually here tonight. She's our Customer Service Supervisor. So if you ever have any questions about programs we offer and what we do for our customers and what the customers are calling in and asking, you're more than welcome to, talk to, I'm assuming I'm not overstepping there, but to talk to her. And she's even here tonight to take questions you have from her.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Wait for the next screen here. Okay, I had a question, Wes, and I don't know if you've thought this far down the road yet, but with our conservative budget that was passed, and I guess it's a good thing that that the revenues are coming in the way they are. Good both for the district, but also that might be a sign that our customers are doing okay through this. Although there are certainly, it sounds like at least a couple hundred that are in need of help. But as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, if we're continuing to trend above our conservative budget, has there been any thought by staff yet as to where are they going to apply those extra funds that are over budget from areas either that you had to cut in the beginning or some other way?
Absolutely. I look at it every month, and we're starting to work on the next budget process, actually. So it's December now. In January, we'll be full steam ahead on the next budget. So it's a good time to start saying, okay, how are we doing, for the next fiscal year? As we're going through things like that and potential rate increases that we consider if we were to go into, say, rate stabilization, we look at that and say, with rate stabilization, that affects the amount or any rate increases we need. And then we definitely consider it during the budget process, which the Finance Committee and the board will be a part of.
Okay. Yeah, if you can, it sounds like you already have it on your radar screen, but if you can kind of formalize that a little bit more as we get into the new year, I think I'd like to, at least as one board member, would like to hear a little bit more kind of meat on the bones around what the plan is for that. Thank you. Okay, this item is for, if there's no other questions or comments, this item is simply a receive and provide direction. So is there any other direction that any board members want to give to staff before we move on to the next item? Okay. Thank you again, Wes and Mike, for the presentation. That's the end of our action items, and we'll move into reports, and we'll go to 3.1 General Manager Report.
All right, thank you, President Sanella. So first of all, I want to welcome our two new board members and welcome back Director Sanella. I have a few items I want to touch on my report. I'll try to make them quick. So Kaiser Hospital. So as the board knows, Kaiser is in the beginning stages of building a 200-bed hospital that would be located just north of the existing Kaiser medical facilities off of Craven. And as with any development that would require water and wastewater services, that project would be required to pay capital facility fees, which we call CAP fees, to pay for its share of infrastructure needed to support the future development. So I just want to let the board know that the Kaiser Hospital recently came in and paid their CAP fees for their project, and we received over $4 million in CAP fees for this project alone. And that was about 1.1 million in water CAP fees and about 2.9 million in wastewater CAP fees. So that's a huge infusion of cash into our capital facility fund. So I wanted to share that. Next update I wanted to give is on the San Marcos Interceptor Sewer Project. So if you've driven along San Marcos Boulevard in the vicinity of Pacific Street by the Arby's there, you've noticed a lot of traffic control and construction, and that's us. That's our project. We're building a new interceptor sewer line. So that's the main sewer line that runs through the city of San Marcos within our service area. And at that location, that sewer line has to cross underneath San Marcos Boulevard. So we're not what we call open cutting. We won't be trenching through the road. We're actually drilling and digging underneath the road. But that means on either side of the road, you have to dig these big pits so that you can put the pipe in and push it through under the ground. So construction's well underway. It'll probably be going through at least the middle of January, maybe into the end of January. But it's a critical piece of that project. And as I mentioned before, we've coordinated all the traffic control with the city of San Marcos, who has control over the streets there. And things seem to be working well. And I would say that maybe one of the benefits of COVID is that the traffic volumes are lower than they would normally be. And schools haven't been in session the way they normally would be. So traffic volumes are lower. Third update I want to give has to do with the district-wide solar project. So the current or former board members and the new board members may not know this, but we are in the process of installation of solar panels to offset a lot of the district's energy consumption. So we're not doing them ourselves. We didn't award a contract. We entered into a power purchase agreement with a private entity. They're installing the solar panels and doing all the work required. And then they sell us electricity at a guaranteed rate, which is significantly lower than SDG&E and does not increase over the life of the power purchase agreement. So it's a huge project in the future, or for the financial future of the district. There's two locations that we're doing this. One is up at our Twin Oaks Reservoir sites up in the northern service area. And that work is about done. They've installed all the panels. They've done most of the electrical connections, and quite frankly, it would be ready to go, but SDG&E won't allow it to be activated until the other location is also online. So that other location is at what we call Lift Station 1. That's along San Marcos Boulevard. And that's been on hold due to some required permits from the city of San Marcos. So I'm happy to announce that we have received the required permits from the city of San Marcos, and that will allow the private power purchase agreement contractor to start installation activities at that site. That's a much smaller site than the Twin Oaks Reservoir site. We think it'll be done within a month or so. And we anticipate that the entire system, including both sites, will be activated by SDG&E on February 19th. So it's still a ways away, about 2 months away, but after that, we'll start to realize the energy savings per our power purchase agreement. So pretty exciting time. And as we get closer to that date, we'll keep the board updated. Let's see, last thing I wanted to say, this is our last meeting of the year. It's been an interesting year for a lot of reasons. We've been dealing with COVID for 10 of the 12 months of this calendar year. It's been a constantly evolving situation with ever-changing regulations that come from the state and the county and federal officials. We've sent our workers home, we've brought them back, and now we've started sending people back home again because the conditions are worsening. And we've asked a lot from our employees, and we've asked more from them than their job descriptions ever envisioned. But we've done a lot in response to that too. We've purchased hand sanitizer dispensers, we've purchased temperature scanners and kiosks. We've acquired more laptops and printers to allow our employees to work productively from home. We've even rented an office trailer to provide additional space and peace of mind for our folks down at the Meadowlark Water Reclamation Facility. And through all of that, we've remained productive in all of the changing scenarios. We have had a few employees that have contracted COVID. We're dealing with a situation currently. Up to date, we didn't think any of those were a result of transmission at work. We still don't know if any of those are a result of transmission that has occurred at work, but I want to say a big thank you to our employees. It's been an amazing response. They've been troopers. They put up with all these changing working conditions and having their temperature taken and being nagged about using hand sanitizers and wearing their masks and keeping socially distant. And that's proven to be very difficult. We're all social creatures. So when people are in the building, it's hard to keep them apart from each other. So that's why we try to send more and more people home. But, I hope that the new year brings a much better outlook. I think we maybe all be getting the best Christmas present we could hope for with the distribution of vaccines for COVID. And hopefully that'll allow us to return to our normal work practices, not just at Vallecitos, but everywhere. And on a related note, with the imminent release of the COVID vaccine, the pressing issue will be who gets that vaccine. So the governor has appointed a group that's supposed to be figuring that out. And right now there's a statewide coalition that's encouraging the state's public health officer to include essential workers in the utility sectors in that state COVID-19 vaccination plan. And a lot of the workers at Vallecitos are essential workers in the utility sector. This would move our workers whose jobs are really critical and who are among the most at risk, particularly in the wastewater sector, to the front of the vaccination line, which would be great. So we'll know more as the state continues its vaccination rollout plans, and we'll update our employees and we'll update the board as that moves along. So with that, I just want to wish each of you a happy holiday season, and make sure you find a way to stay safe, but also find a way to spend time with your families. So that's all I have for tonight, President Sanella.
Thank you, Glenn, and a lot of positive things that you reported on. I appreciate the update. Any questions from any of the board members about the general manager's report? Okay, and I think we all would agree with you, Glenn, that it's been a challenging year, and we're very grateful for everything that all of our employees have sacrificed for our customers and keeping the operation going. And we wish them well. We wish you and everybody involved with Vallecitos a happy holiday season. So thank you. We'll move on to the District Legal Counsel report.
Thanks, Vice President Sanella. I just wanted to give a brief update as we're heading into the holidays. You'll all be sitting on your couches with nothing better to do than tweet and post. This is relative to AB 992, which I previously reported on. This is the new Brown Act legislation that creates a bright line rule that you as members of the legislative body cannot respond directly to posts by other board members on matters, business matters, basically, of the district. So if one director posts something on Facebook regarding a matter of concern for the district, you can't post a like or a smiley or a thumbs up to that post. This is new legislation to deal with serial meetings and the potential impact of social media on what's really questions related to how serial meeting prohibitions apply to social media. Under a serial meeting, you can talk to 2 directors, but you can't go to 3. Under the social media prohibition, you can't like anybody's posts. So I just put it that way. Although it doesn't say so, I mean, the district has obviously a website, Facebook page, and I think this is the Twitter page. So I would caution you in terms of responding to posts on district websites as well. If it's things that have been done, so it's a kudo over something that has happened in the past, I think you're free to like it or give it a heart or whatever you want to do. But if it's something that the district is considering, like a future project or anything, you should really refrain from posting any expression of support for it on the social media websites in light of this new legislation. With that, I wish everybody a happy holiday, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, that's definitely some interesting information. Hey, Glenn, is there, I like to, as part of the getting the information out to the customers, I'll often share, what our public relations teams will post I guess I do like it too, especially if it's something like I'm thinking of a particular example would be when we announced the solar project, right? That was being installed in Twin Oaks. I thought that was a very interesting story that our customers would like to, as many people as possible would like to know about it. And so I think I both liked it and shared it. I know that probably qualified as a project that was already voted on and in the works and done. But is there a resource within the district that board members can utilize if there's something that's a little bit kind of iffy, or they just want to just double check just to make sure that we stay out of trouble? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, you can go through me and I'll probably direct you to General Counsel Gilpin. It's not a line we want anybody to cross, so we need to be careful of it.
Yeah, Vice President Sinella, if there's something that the district is anticipating doing, there's no restriction on any of you as board members from posting that on social media, letting your constituents know that this is something the district will be considering in the future, et cetera. So that there's no problem with that the law has made it clear that you can post information and inform your constituents and even enter into discussions with your constituents about how they may feel about a future item. Where they've drawn the bright line is if you post something and enter into discussions with your constituents, if another director jumps in and adds a thumbs up or jumps into that discussion in response to your post, that's the bright line. And so why I raise it with respect to the district websites, if you go, or the district social media sites, if you go onto any of those and you post a thumbs up, then if Director A posts a thumbs up, Director B posts a thumbs up, and then Director C posts a thumbs up. If it's a future item, right there, we've got a potential serial meeting violation. So maybe that's a better example. Thanks.
But don't be offended when we don't like anything you post, Director Sinella. I'm not going to like anything.
I appreciate that, Director Pinnock. Any other I see a hand, Director Boyd Hodgson.
Thank you for clarifying this, Mr. Gilpin. And, one of the reasons why I supported President Sinella for president is because I'm very supportive of the idea of elevating the public awareness of Vallecitos as a district. And as the new chair of the Public Awareness Committee, I'd like to continue these discussions because I think that there is the opportunity, particularly when we are trying to communicate with our constituents, to say, hey, look what Vallecitos is doing. And that is different from, Director Sinella posting something and then I like it, and then Director Ellithorpe likes it. I see them as different. And, I'd like to continue this conversation because I think it is a real opportunity to showcase staff, to showcase projects, and really elevate Vallecitos to the folks in the district.
Good point. Thank you. Any other comments? And Glenn, I suspect you took notes and that you'll be reaching out.
I've got notes. Yep.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, great. We'll move on to the Water Authority. I'm so used to saying Director Evans, but Director Ellithorpe.
Yes. Thank you, President Sinella. I underwent my board orientation December 1st. I met with the GM, General Counsel, and department heads on that date. Very thorough orientation. I was sworn in on the 7th of December. Had my first board meeting the 10th of December. There was 2 items on the agenda. The first was a legislative update by State Senator Brian Jones. And the second item was the board selected a new vice chair to replace Christy Guerin from Olivenhain Municipal Water District. She had stepped down in that capacity. So we selected Mona Rios, the representative from the city of National City. It was notable that she's the first Latina in the Water Authority, 76 years to be selected to a board executive position. So that's my report.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions? for Director Althart? Okay. We'll move on to the Encino Wastewater Authority. We'll start off with you, Mr. Hernandez, for capital improvement.
Our next meeting will be February the 17th for the Capital Committee and February the 24th for the board meeting. And nothing further to report.
Okay, for policy and finance, I'll turn that over to you, General Manager Pro.
I'm trying to remember if there's anything to report since the last meeting. I don't think that there was.
No, I attended it in the audience, and they did an overview of the finance policy for EWA, similar to what we did for tonight for our district. And then there was also some discussion about setting their meeting calendar for the following for 2021, but nothing substantial other than the update on the finance policy. But I look forward to giving the more formal reports when I'm actually seated as a member in the future. We'll move on to standing committees. I wasn't the chair of the finance committee last year, but because Director Martin's no longer here, I will report out that we have not met, and I've had an initial conversation with Director General Manager Pruitt to potentially set a finance meeting up for this month. I know that we're getting very close to the holidays and schedules might be tough, but Glenn, if you haven't already, if you could reach out to Director Boyd Hodgson and engage her interest in having a meeting this month and her availability.
Yeah, I'll reach out to her tomorrow.
Okay. And then any other standing committees? Does anybody have anything to report out?
No.
No.
Okay. Super. Let me scroll down here and see where we're at. Any directors' reports on meetings, conferences, seminars, or anything else that you have attended? I have not attended anything. Has anybody? I see Director Althart.
Yeah, I attended 3 events, and I've got a lot of notes, but I'll just go through quickly. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I attended the Aquafall Conference, December 2nd and 3rd. As usual, it was a great program. 2 presentations that stood out for me were the first was a presentation or panel discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how the water industry is leading change. I think we're going to be hearing more and more about this, obviously, with the changing politics. So, very good panel discussion. The second one was a panel discussion on working collaboratively on the Colorado River, which obviously includes the 7 basin states, the various Native American tribes, the Salton Sea Authority et al. It was very good and timely since the shortage allocation agreement is coming due in a couple of years, I think in 2025 or 2026. So being able to work collaboratively on the Colorado River is as important as ever. Let me grab my notes. December 14th, I attended the Aqua Water Quality Committee meeting, and typically these occur twice a year around the time of the fall and spring conferences. The subjects discussed were the Safe Drinking Water for All Act, which was SB 200. And so the implementation, the discussion was really on implementation going forward on that. Some of the other topics, shut off suspension during COVID-19 pandemic. We talked about that in our own update. Under the Safe Drinking Water Subcommittee, we talked about MCL economic feasibility discussions. And really this is centering around our kind of our contaminants du jour, which are hexavalent chromium and the PFOS, PFOA, and PFOS. Kind of the next one up for MCL determination is hexavalent chromium. They're looking at MCLs anywhere from 1 part per billion to 25 parts per billion. You have to do an economic feasibility on each of those. I think they're looking at 6 different levels to analyze. Those were kind of the major things. And obviously, if anybody has any questions, I can forward more detailed information.
Thank you,
Last
Director
one I
Alford.
attended was on December 15th. It was a joint CWEA, CASA COVID-19 update. Specifically, CWEA is California Water Environment Association. CASA obviously is a California Association of Sanitation Agencies. They put on a joint webinar. And it's an update on wastewater surveillance, and it's the 4th in a series that they've done through the year during the pandemic. What we're talking about here is wastewater-based epidemiology, and that's sampling raw wastewater to determine COVID-19 virus concentrations. Very interesting discussion, a lot going on at the state and federal level. A lot of utilities nationwide doing this. Big pilot program in California amongst the major metropolitan areas, San Diego, LA, and San Francisco areas, which represents about 40% of the state's population. So I can go on, but I'll stop there. And if anyone has any more detailed questions on any of these, I'll be happy to provide it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Eltharp. If there's no questions, I think I saw Director Boyd Hodgson had her hand up.
I did, thank you. So in an unofficial capacity, because I wasn't yet sworn in, I attended just a few events, and I have some notes, but I'll be brief. I attended the November 18th San Diego Water Board meeting. There was a discussion about the Lake San Marcos cleanup. Lake San Marcos is mostly contained within Division 5, and it was, of interest to me. I'm looking forward to a full briefing on that issue, but one of the things that they presented was that there are 3 phases that were discussed with approximate timelines to continue the process. The lake treatment was slated for summer 2020, followed by the aeration, where they pump oxygen into the lake, and that reduces the nutrient buildup and the fish kills through a modified and selective withdrawal process. And then that is also slated for 2021. So, and then going forward, to be determined after 2021 is the watershed maintenance and long-term sustainability part. My understanding was that the latest roadblock has to do with something called an NPDES, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits, which have not come through just yet. So that's sort of roadblocking the cleanup effort. The San Diego Water Board expressed in no uncertain terms that they were disappointed with the progress that's being made on that program. So I'm really looking forward to understanding more about that and figuring out a way, if at all, that we can move that forward. Secondly, I saw a virtual tour of the Valencia reclamation plant, which is in the Santa Clarita water system up near LA. And it was really fascinating. And I wanted to see that for 2 reasons. Number one, because I thought I could learn something. But secondly, I was also really interested in sort of checking it out to see how they did a virtual tour with the eye toward we're not going to be able to hold public tours for the next little while because of COVID-19, but I think people are still interested in seeing the facilities and seeing the way that, we treat our water and the way water comes in and ends up in their faucet. So I found the tour informative. I thought there were some things they did well. I thought there were some things that they could have improved on, but I really look forward to exploring that in a future meeting or in the Public Awareness Committee on how perhaps we could do that with Vallecitos. And finally, just last night, I attended my homeowners association meeting. It's in San Elijo Hills, which represents a large portion of Division 5. And what the we talked earlier about how a lot of the irrigation water is used through HOA. And I know that that's a large expense for my personal HOA. So one of the things that this particular HOA did it was a huge endeavor. They have implemented a new irrigation system, and it involved changing both the heads and sensors along all the common areas and hillsides in the neighborhood. The new sensors are water wise and they are weather sensing, which is very cool because that means that they can sense when it rains and they water less. And I thought that that was a really interesting thing that the HOA was doing. It's expected to reduce the expenses by 30 to 40%. I don't know how much water it's going to save, but the great thing about it is that it does both. So I just wanted to shout out to Walters Management for thinking environmentally, but also saving homeowners money. It was a huge undertaking, and they implemented that. And finally, I just wanted to wish everybody a happy holiday.
Great, thank you. Any other reports by any of the other directors? Okay. Let's see here. That's the end of the reports. Other business. Just this is more of a pass along if you didn't see it in your packets. But there's a CASA virtual winter conference, January 27th and 28th of 2021. If you're interested, reach out to Diane and she will help facilitate your attendance and coordinate your registration. And then going to item 4.2. As usual, quarterly, we have our board expenses that are in our packet and on our agenda. This is for our information only, but certainly open for discussion if there is any. Yep. Okay, Director Boyd Hodgson.
I do have a question, and I was just looking through it to sort of get an idea of what what this new job entails, and I noticed that it looks like there was some money paid out to the directors to attend a Boys and Girls Club function. And so my question is that something that we typically do? Do we typically go to charity functions and are reimbursed for it? And secondly, how are the charities chosen?
Well, may I start, President?
Yeah, Director Hernandez, if you want to give a board perspective, I certainly can chime in as well since it was a board decision.
All right.
But first, Glenn, did you want to kick off or you want us to take this from the board?
No, I think it's best come from the board.
Okay. Director Hernandez, it's all yours.
Having been past president of the Boys and Girls Club, over the years, and this has just been happening in the last 4 or 5, the board members have, and some of us have really promoted having the district be more visible to the community. I know we do our outside programs for the fairs when the fairs were going on, but the Boys and Girls Club was probably one of the biggest fundraisers and community events, and lots of us supported it. So we thought that we do not receive a per diem for that. The amounts that were in there, the district bought a table, and then it was just shared, divided by 5. I would hope that we continue to support the Boys and Girls Club, and not only for their support, but also for getting us out into the community and letting them know that we are part of the community and want to be visible.
Thanks, Director Hernandez. And similarly, I don't have much more to add from my thought process when we considered this over the last few years. But really the driving factor for me was that we wanted to be out where the community was. And at this particular Boys and Girls Club annual event that they have, there's hundreds of people, maybe even close to 1,000 people who do attend it. The school district is there. They typically have a table. I don't know if it's the Teachers Association that purchases it or if it's the school district or how they do it, but they have a table. You have members of law enforcement and fire, of course, the city council, business owners throughout. And so the folks that we impact with our decisions every day are in that room. And so as part of our outreach and being where people are, that's why I was supportive of getting a table. As a bonus, it was supporting a good cause. I think we probably could do a little bit better, to your question, about putting some parameters around how we choose, how and when we choose to support an organization like that. And could be a great endeavor for the policy, personnel and policy committee to maybe kind of start that conversation and bring it to the whole board for more discussion and consideration.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Any other questions or comments on 5.1? I don't think we have to vote on it. I think it's for information. Okay.
If no action.
Moving in. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just said no, there's no action required on that item.
Okay. End of other business. 5.1 director's comments, future agenda items. Anybody have anything they would like to bring up? Okay. Hearing and seeing none.
Director Hernandez has his hand up.
I did
Oh,
have,
I'm sorry. Thank you. Director
I-
Hernandez.
I again want to welcome our new board members and wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, the whole bang of holidays. Be safe.
Director Hernandez, thank you. Any other comments or future items? Director Althart?
Yeah, I'd just like to wish everybody a happy, safe holiday. Be safe and take care of your families.
Thank you. Okay. And any others? Any others? And I'll just echo them for the third or fourth time tonight and just say happy holidays, everybody. Looking forward to a great 2021 and be safe and enjoy the time that you can try to get with your families. Thank you. With that, we'll adjourn. Thank you guys. Have a good night. Thank you to everybody in the audience who joined. Take care.